What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? Welcome back, or welcome if you're new, to the Will Lester Thought Factory podcast. Thank you for joining me here on episode 2. As I know it's been a slight inconvenience between episode 1 and episode 2, you can yell at me on Twitter at WLTF Podcast or email me at WillLesterTFPodcast@gmail.com. You can yell at me on those two platforms, but I would like to explain myself right now. I had to take care of some other issues outside of the podcast, take care of some real life issues. Had to stay on my P's and Q's. But we're back. And speaking of P's and Q's, the podcast has a Q&A today. I sat around and texted some people and asked for some questions. And I have a good list. I have a mixture, let you understand who you're listening to. Often, hopefully. Make sure you follow, subscribe, whether you're listening on Spotify or YouTube. Like the podcast, please, and share with a friend. You know you're having a good time. Sit back, relax. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're grinding my career. I don't know why you're grinding my career in July, but that's on you. Maybe you're sitting around outside. It's hot. Go back inside. You pay for AC for a reason. Anywho, let's get back to the topic at hand, the Q&A. As I said, I got a list of questions here to my left in my hand, on my phone, in my notepad, and I'm just going to get right to it. As for the first question, I feel like this is a good question to start off with. It's simply top 5 rappers. And I'm going to do all time because I'm really not a nowadays listener, if that makes sense. We're going to start, I feel like I know my 1-2. My 1-2 for sure is Jay-Z, number 1. And Mr. West, number 2, Kanye West. Number 3, I don't know who would fill the number 3 spot. I don't know. I don't know who would fill the number 3 spot. I feel like it's a toss-up. It's a huge toss-up. But maybe Pac. I feel like if we put Pac 3, put 4 as big, and then 5, I'm going to throw something in there that's going to make everybody kind of confused. But if you know me, you know why I'm putting this out of sheer love, and I'm going to explain it too. 5, Michael Jackson. Everybody collect your breath. Number 5 is Michael Jackson because I feel Michael Jackson had a lot of hip-hop instrumentals in his early 2000s Invincible era, like song making. If you listen, it sounds a lot like anybody can hop on. Recently I heard a Jay-Z remix to You Rock My World. That song is undoubtedly a great song. The music video is amazing. If I remember correctly, Chris Tucker is in the video with Michael. So a beautiful song, and the fact that Jay-Z flawlessly hopped on, or whenever Jam came out, it's been proven Michael has made beautiful rap songs. Stemming on the rapping format, I had another question. It was about my battle raps and my favorite battle rappers, my top, I don't know, the question wasn't very specific, very vague, top battle raps. I'm going to go rappers, makes it very easier. Number 1, Geechee Gotti. Number 2, Tay Rock. Number 3, Hitman Holla. I feel like they're all self-explanatory. I muted myself. I'm leaving that in the podcast, but I muted myself. My setup, I wish I could see my setup. I am not. The setup is not ready for it to be a video podcast. Video podcast will be coming. Hopefully, episode 10 is a video podcast. Depends on how I'm pushing out these episodes. Make sure you keep liking and subscribing and hitting me up at WT. Oh, let's see if I can remember the at for Twitter. WLTF podcast on Twitter at WLTF podcast, or you can email me willlestertfpodcast@gmail.com. Our next question, will put you on a deep insight on what really goes on in Will Lester's Thought Factory IRL edition. I'm so dirty. I'm sorry. We have favorite video game / favorite console of all time. I bunched these together because, it's I classify it as one with the other. I can't have one without the other. It's like the peanut butter and jelly. Okay, you can't have the jelly without the peanut butter. Okay, and you can't have the peanut butter without the jelly. I mean, you can, but it's not the same. Okay. The game is SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. Amazing game, and no, do not get your crimey, dirty ears excited, Xbox fans. I'm not talking about on a 360. I'm talking about right there on the good old PlayStation 2. It doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. The roster was amazing. GM mode, story mode, exhibition. If you and your friends wanted to sit there and play, you can. You had it all on that game. That game still holds up to this day. And don't get me wrong. 2 and 3. Alright, my 2 and 3 are backwards. I pushed Here Comes the Pain down to 3. Here Comes the Pain, it's good. I like Here Comes the Pain. It's a fun game. You know, me and my little brother, we have a great time on that game. But when I'm playing by myself and I'm sitting there, I'm playing Shut Your Mouth. Shut Your Mouth is amazing. I love Shut Your Mouth. Shut Your Mouth is number 2. So let me reiterate my list. We have PlayStation 2 as my favorite console of all time, with favorite video game being number 1, SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, number 2, SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, and number 3 coming in, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. Of course, 3 PlayStation 2 games, making sense on why the PlayStation 2 is my favorite console of all time. You feel me? Like, are you keeping up? I feel like you should be keeping up. If you are, make sure you like and subscribe. Follow on Spotify, share it with a friend. If you made it this far and you're enjoying the podcast, enjoying the Q&A, why haven't you done that already? You're wasting your time, you're wasting mine. You're wasting our time together. The next question I have is another great question, as it is, who is one celebrity you would want to meet, dead or alive? As you know, or you may have learned from the last question, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I really love professional wrestling. You will learn that from listening to the podcast. So the one man that I would love to meet, sit down, have a dinner with, talk to, it's Vincent Kennedy McMahon. I feel like that man, there's no better brain to pick that hasn't already been picked. He doesn't talk to the media. He doesn't really share stories. There's nothing. You hear what people have said about Vince, but you don't really hear Vince, if that makes sense. I want to hear Vince. I want to hear what Vince has to say. I want to talk to Vince. I want to sit there and be like, hey, Vince, so tell me everything. And if you don't, I'm going to cry. He's probably not going to care, but, you got to do what you got to do. I just need to know what's inside of that brain. Why are you holding on to it, Vince? And I really hope that one day he decides to retire and he just sets a camera up and with his big raspy voice, I'm not even going to try to say it. He goes, I'm Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and these are my stories. And he just speaks. Can we get that, Vince, please? Can everybody tweet this to Vince McMahon? Be like, Vince, we need a shoot interview, please. Now it's time for a little bit of a funny story that I had. The question is, what's the most trouble you've been in? I really didn't get in trouble growing up. I didn't do much. I sat in the house and watched wrestling, played with my wrestlers, and Yeah, I didn't have time to be in shenanigans. But there was one time where I was supposed to have after school suspension, but I was such a good kid that I had after school for disrupting class, but I was such a good kid that I had like field trips and stuff already lined up for other activities. And they just happened to coincide. So what happened was I got offered to go on the field trip, and instead of going to after school, so I went on the field trip. No one told my mother. I didn't tell my mother. So, in the middle of my laser tag game, my phone's blowing up. I'm like, yo, what's going on? So I pull out my phone, and I just see a bunch of missed calls and texts from my mother asking where I was, because I done forgot that I wasn't supposed to be at laser tag. So let's just say that instead of going to after school, I went to laser tag and had fun, and it was a great time. I forget what it was called. It was like Zone 58 maybe. I think, but that's the most trouble I've ever been in. I don't get in trouble because I'm a good kid. Ting. So my next question is a great question for understanding why I'm where I am today. The question is, what is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it? So, what I consider my biggest failure is only playing 6 games of high school football. For those of you who don't know, I tore my meniscus in the 7th game, 6th, 7th game of the season in the middle of the field because of a counterplay. Well, not a counterplay, but it was like we stuffed the hole that he was initially. We stuffed the first A gap, so he bounced it over, and what happened was I tried to like quickly bend and twist, but I'm 6'3", and I'm playing D tackle, so I shouldn't. I'm low to begin with, so my knee buckles, and he's gone, and we get the tackle, but I don't, and my knee hurts, and luckily we get a timeout, so I drag out the field, and I'm in pain. I finish the game, adrenaline rushes. Luckily, it was close to halftime, so I had a halftime break. During halftime, I texted my mom, dad, sister, and girlfriend at the time, like, yo, my knee. I needed them to be aware. So, like, hey, if you see me not out there balling, bro, you know why. My knee was messed up. I was on pace with pretty good numbers. I had 7 sacks in 6 games. I had 2 sacks in front of Aaron Donald, quote unquote Aaron Donald. I'm not gonna say it was him, but there was word that it was. There was a hooded man that was sitting there watching the game, and everybody was saying it was Aaron Donald. I managed to get 2 sacks. Whether it was him, that's here nor there. But yeah, so that's what happened. That was my biggest failure, and I consider it a failure because I was working to get back to the ninth or to high school football. I was waiting and patiently rebuilding myself to get to high school football. I played football when I was 8 and 9 years old. 7 and 8 years old back in 2010, 2011. I played football, Pop Warner. I was center and DN. I was just bigger than everybody, so it was naturally easy. I've just been a big kid, and then I stopped to get my footwork because I was very slow compared to everybody else. So I had to get my feet right, and so I played soccer. But it's funny, I went and played soccer, but I played goalie, so like my footwork really didn't change. I just got a little bit quicker, a little better ball skills, my awareness went up. I became a better football player playing soccer. I will admit that. I became a better football player playing soccer, and I studied the game a lot more. But so I got to 9th grade, and I only played 6 games. And I was really starting to connect. I was the first freshman to play defense in varsity because we always got blown out. So I was the first freshman to play defense. And, coaches were starting to realize who it was because I didn't grow up with the kids on the team. The kids on the team were playing football together 7th and 8th grade. The coaches knew them, this, that. I was just this kid that no one knew, just trying to make a name on the team, and I just went in there and that's what I did. And then, push comes to shove, one tear later, and here I am. And I consider that a failure because I felt like I had a lot more potential. A lot of people felt like I had a lot more potential, but it was more a mental thing. I never mentally put myself in a position to play football again. I never thought football was open for me because I was scared. I was never too sure if my knee would hold up. I was never too sure about this because I ended up having 4 major leg surgeries. And that really took a toll on me because I had a surgery before. I had a surgery in 7th grade I had an overgrown meniscus, and I had surgery on that, and they shaved that down. And then during recovery, they realized I had a tight Achilles, so they had to stretch that. And it was real rough because I only had 8th grade to recover, and then 9th grade happened, and then because in 8th grade I played football, and I didn't play football. I played basketball and soccer, and I felt confident on my leg, and then I built and went through summer workouts in 9th grade with football, and then tearing my meniscus. I just never put myself back in that position because I always looked at myself as a wrestler. I always wanted to be a wrestler. I felt like wrestling is where I was gonna be. I just felt like football was a way to help me prepare, was a way to get my mentality right, get my body right, get me focused fully, especially looking at who I admire in the wrestling business, who I want to be like in the wrestling business. You look at someone like Brock Lesnar or John Cena or The Rock or Roman Reigns. Football players established themselves as football players and then became wrestlers and then showed that you can make the transfer. Because I feel like wrestling's in my blood more than football is, and I feel like if I had that extra football building, the extra football background, that wrestling would be that much easier. But that's neither here nor there. I need to say what I learned. Dang. What I learned from it is that just follow your heart. Just do what you feel is best for you. I always felt like I had one more season left in me, or like I still have a season left in me, but it just wasn't right. Now I'm at the point in my life where it's almost time to start professional wrestling. Excuse me. It's almost that time. And I'm almost there. And that's what I want. That's what I want best for me. And that is where I feel I'm going to be as a professional wrestler. As that connects right to this next question. As the next question is, what is your dream life? My dream life would be to live in an RV riding all around North America professionally wrestling as a successful independent wrestler. That is my dream life. If you ever see me just touring America doing a pro wrestling tour, that's just know I'm at my happiest peak. I've made it known to people that children aren't really in my interest. So if I end up having them kids, you find this, my bad, B. That's not my fault. I just didn't want you at the time. Right now, if I end up wanting you, that's cool. Anyway, but I don't want kids. I plan on just living life to what it can fully be instead of being held down in one spot, trying to build up one area. I want to travel. I want to live that. I don't know how to put it without sounding like, oh, I just don't want to have like, I don't know how to put it. I man, hold on. How do I want to put this? Just know I want to be a professional wrestler, a successful professional wrestler that can travel around the world in an RV with a hot wife. That is what I want. That is what I desire. There's no other way I could put that. All right. Okay. And so I'm gonna call this the final question. I feel like this is a great question to wrap it up on. Huge, shocking, exciting news for the next episode. We might have some special guests on some coming episodes. A 3-way dance podcast. That's only something you'd find here on the Will Lester Thought Factory podcast. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure you like, subscribe, follow on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, share it with a friend. And make sure you get at me on Twitter at WLTF Podcast. Or you can email me, WillLesterTFPodcast@gmail.com. As here we go with the final question. Final question. What's your greatest accomplishment? My greatest accomplishment is that I paced my life to get where I am today. I have perfectly managed, not perfectly, I've had my ups, I've had my downs, but I've managed the past 18 years to get where I want to be. And that is on the track of starting life, of starting college and starting wrestling, and getting those intertwined and start at the same time. So hopefully I'm breaking at the same time. Hopefully I'm making that big jump in my career the same time I'm exiting college. That is the goal. And I've managed to pace myself and get myself to that without any major flaws. I don't have anything that can hold that. I'm not going to say I don't have anything that can hold me back, but I don't have a bunch of tie downs. I'm flexible. I can go and be where I need to be to better myself in any situation. And I'm very happy that I can say that at 18 years old. That's my greatest accomplishment. My greatest accomplishment is to be able to say that my nieces can look up to me and be like, "Oh, he's on track," and have that stability, because I feel I'm not fully on track. Like, I have some screws loose. I'm not gonna sit here and say that everything's perfect, but I'm there. And I can say that in a comfortable light. So that would be my greatest accomplishment, pacing myself. I ran a great pace. I'm pacing the lap around life, and I'm doing it. So that was the final question of the Will Lester Thought Factory podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed your time in the factory, make sure you share it with a friend. Make sure you tweet at me at WLTF Podcast, or email me WillLesterTFPodcast@gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment right here on YouTube. And while you're down there, make sure you like and subscribe. Turn on that notification or click that bell. You never know when I might drop a podcast. And thank you again for coming. And make sure you come back. Make sure you come for the Triple Threat podcast. Yeah, it sounds cool. It's going to be amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.